Welcome to the Being in Medicine show. I'm Corey Anderson.
And I'm Jeff Mars.
Together, we aim to revolutionize the healthcare experience for patients, clinicians, and all team members by unlocking the transformative power of human potential.
Each week, we explore with you and our guests how embracing our authentic selves and choosing who we are being can affect the nature of healing, leading to profound transformations in our lives and in the lives of those around us.
Join us today on a journey through self-discovery and empowerment as we unlock the human potential within each of us.
Welcome back to the Being in Medicine show. Today we have a very, very special guest. Dr. Nargess is a functional endocrinologist, visionary entrepreneur, and legacy builder on a mission to transform lives through personalized integrative care. With a strong foundation in evidence-based medicine and a passion for holistic healing, she helps patients reclaim hormonal balance, vitality, and long-term health. Fluent in both Farsi and the language of functional medicine, Dr. Nargess is the force behind a concierge-style endocrine clinic, teen financial literacy programs, bilingual educational content, and a global vision that stretches from the exam room to international impact. Whether she's organizing cultural events, transcribing Persian poetry for her daughter, or coaching patients to reclaim their health, Dr. Nargess leads with heart, precision, and purpose. Help me welcome Dr. Nargess today.
Yeah, welcome, Dr. Nargess. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you for having me on your podcast as a guest.
Absolutely. We're happy to have you. We're excited to have the conversation around being in medicine.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're going to launch right into it.
Yeah.
All three of us, along with some other people, are members of a Being in Medicine mastermind. Tell me about that, your participation, how that shows up for you.
Well, initially I got invited to that group through a dear friend named Ken Antebak. I met Ken during my online initially, during my journey to entrepreneurship. So we were both in a group for happiness in business. So that was run by a person, I forgot his name now, but he is a chief happiness officer. And he has a YouTube video about what he does and his story. So I met Ken there, and he reached out to me a year and a half later and said he has gone to a conference about being in Arizona, and he has met a few other doctors, one being an OBGYN in England and one an orthopedic surgeon in South Carolina. And he would like to start a group about being in medicine. He knew my passion about suicide prevention in physicians. So he thought that aligns with the work that I'm doing through nonprofit. And I started coming to the meetings and met you guys for the first time there, clicked very quickly with you all. And since then, I've been looking forward to those meetings that are now bi-weekly meetings.
Well, we love having you a part of it. It's been fun to get to know you and watch the journey together. So, yeah, happy to have you in the group and on the podcast today.
Thank you.
Sounds like you have a special heart for preventing suicide in physicians. Is that a big issue? And if so, why? Tell us more about that.
Statistically, we lose 425 physicians annually to death by suicide that's documented as the cause of death in United States alone. That's the
Wow.
statistic of United States. Since suicide is generally a taboo way of dying in almost every society, we believe the number of physicians who die by suicide is at least 10 times than it's documented. Most of the time, to prevent any negativity for the people who survive the suicide loss, the family of the physician, generally speaking, and also in an attempt to prevent, like kind of to create a better legacy per se for the physician.
Mm-hmm.
Cause of death would be changed to something like uh, heart attack, like
Sure.
not the real cause of death by our peers, actually,
Yeah.
to protect the person who is lost. So, suicide is a very difficult topic for people to talk about, especially when it comes in physicians. Generally, physicians are highly respected in any society they work. They are leaders of their society. They are there to help promote health. So once there is a physician is dead by suicide, it basically is a very hard thing to swallow
Yeah.
for, especially for the patients who that physician was taking care of many times to the last few hours of their lives. I'm actually getting goosebumps remembering some of the colleagues I have lost myself who actually operated the night before on my patients and called me from the OR telling me that the patient is okay. And the next day, I was in my clinic and another colleague comes in and says, so and so killed himself.
Wow.
And it's a very hard topic. We human species try not to touch hard topics, generally speaking. It's hard. But there is Dr. Pamela Weibel, who is a leader in this field. She has actually 2,300, she has been directly involved with 2,300 cases of physician died by suicide. Either she has known those physicians, have worked with them prior to the death, or the family have reached out to her and they wrote this story and unfold what was going on. So in 2018, I got to meet Dr. Pamela Weibel first through her website, and then I actually called her. And the reason being is I lost a friend. I have a friend, they were twins. We went to same medical school. She lost her twin, who was an ophthalmologist, and to suicide. And I lost a colleague who did a surgery on my patient the night before. So I was like helpless. I just could not comprehend what's going on. So searched it online, found Pamela Weibel, and sent her an email, and she gave me a call. And that was the beginning of a journey that I'm still on today.
Wow. What a remarkable story, and just the impact of that in your life and all of those families and caregivers, and remarkable work that you're doing.
But acknowledge your willingness to face the hard thing, right? A lot of us can't do that. So
yes,
you're very strong. Is there something in particular? I mean, everyone has their own story, and suicide is a cultural problem. not just in medicine,
Right.
in the field of medicine. Is there something these days about being in medicine that has a specific impact on suicide rates or risks?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, in United States, we're talking. This is all about United States because that's where we have the most data. And in United States, the practice of medicine has started to change since the presidency of Mr. Nixon in 1960s. Back then, these people who were started talking about medicine being a business. And in a business setting, generally you either sell something, sell like a merchandise or something, or sell a service and you charge a client and you make money. So that was the beginning of the transition of medicine from how it used to be in the United States to what we are observing now. So gradually, all the thought leaders in business started working toward how they can make medicine, transition it to a business that's basically lucrative. However, when this transition was happening, not many physicians were involved with the change that was being made. Basically, the rules and the laws were being created by people who are not physicians or staff members in the hospital or nurses. People were actually delivering medicine.
Right.
They were not making the rules. Somebody who is basically a master in business getting together and creating this business out of medicine. So what ended up happening is gradually there were changes made that were against what a physician stands for. Meaning, generally, most physicians go to medicine to heal. So the
Right.
idea is to heal or help others. We take an oath after we finish med school, and we say if we can't help, at least not hurt somebody. So that's the oath we take,
Yeah.
right? And
Absolutely.
we stand by it. No matter how much pressure is at work, no matter how sleepless nights, how many you have in a row, no matter what's going in your personal life, you stand by it. That defines a physician. Meaning, if somebody walks into my office because they have uncontrolled diabetes, I can't just simply say, oh, you know what? Your insurance doesn't cover insulin. I can't help you. Bye. That's not how it works in medicine.
Right.
So, my role as a physician is to do whatever it takes to help that individual who has come to my office asking for help. That's not what's happening in regular businesses.
No.
So, trying to make a business out of medicine, that is something that works with three aspects of people's life: their spirit, their mind, and their physics. There's three things involved. Every encounter you have with every single individual, there is no way you can call this a business. And that's where, because of these changes made, physicians lost autonomy. So nowadays, what we see currently in the health systems, actually, most physicians are employed. Being employed means you sell your mastery and your skills and you get paid for it. That
Sure.
is not what medicine is. So it's currently what we are experiencing is a high level. It's the function that a physician plays is like a highly paid slave, meaning you don't have anything to say, generally speaking, you just deliver as you're asked. So I had two jobs when after I finished fellowship. One of the jobs, they were telling me I'm spending too much time with patients, and it was a constant. And I had to kind of fight and say, listen, 15 minutes is not going to cut it for a diabetic patient who is on 1,000 units of insulin.
Right.
It's not doing it.
Yeah, there's more complex. Yeah.
It is. I got to get into deep down with these people to make a change.
Right.
And it was constant, like knocking on my door. Oh, your time is up. Next. Time is up. Next. I'm not selling anything. I'm dealing with an individual in front of me.
Right.
I ended up working about 14 hours a day, not with extra pay. And at some point, my wait list was a year for new patients because people wanted to see me because
Right.
they thought I listened to them.
Yeah.
And I couldn't maintain it. So I quit that job. And the next was the same thing. Like, you're spending too much time, and it's just difficult to kind of sustain a good, productive relationship with your patient with all the forces that are put on in the background. I don't know if I answered your question.
I think you did. I think there's a lot that you answered in that question, in that response.
I'm listening to what you say, and if I can just speak it back to you, what I think I hear you saying is that as physicians, due to the necessity of being an employee, there's the possibility that we might be doing things or seeing ourselves do things that don't really align for us. They're not consistent with who we really are at our core. They're not really consistent with our true mission. And that out of alignment behavior creates stress and disharmony that might ultimately lead to suicide.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a great way to summarize that, put that into language that we can all resonate with.
And I wanted to add one point. Even though people say suicide is actually in many cultures, they say suicide comes from weakness. But if you reflect on it, suicide is the only way of death when the person takes control of the death. As human beings, we generally don't choose when we are born. Like, we're just born, right? So nobody chooses the date of birth.
Yeah.
Nobody chooses their date of death unless they actually commit suicide. So it is for physicians. That's why the rate is very high in physicians, also very successful. Two factors plays in that. One is when they are so helpless, basically doing the job that they are worked so hard to get masterful at, and they're so helpless they can't do anything. They come to this helplessness that they can't make any change, and they can do the only thing to release this pain when the person actually attempts and commit, finally has a successful suicide, is they think they just want to relieve this pain that they can't bear anymore because of this all the conflicts that's going on and be obstructing their mission. So
Yeah.
that's actually one thing to reflect on. And the other point is, most of these individuals who are dead, they did not go through all this training, all this work to kill themselves. It's the system is not sustainable to live based on your core values. And that's the way, unfortunately, they end up their lives. And that results in many people not receiving the care that they need,
Yeah.
which are the patients who were in their practice.
Right. So you had mentioned, I really appreciate this topic and I appreciate the really good work that you do. But there was something that drew me into when you were talking about your experiences after your fellowship, and working with patients, and then the dichotomy of having to see more patients and do more things. What was it about you? How were you showing up with your patients that started to create that 1 year long wait period for them to see you? What was it that you were bringing and showing up every day? Let's reflect on that for a moment.
It's an excellent question, Corey. Actually, I got asked when I started here in this town that I work. There's only one other endocrinologist. He has
Sure.
been practicing for 35 years now, or close to 40 in this town. So when I came to the town as a new, like freshly out of fellowship physician, within 4 months, most of his practice transitioned to my practice.
Wow.
So he actually called me up, invited me to go to breakfast with him. So
Sure.
I did go to breakfast, and his first question was, he said, "You are young and inexperienced. Tell me, how are you stealing my patients?" That was the question he put.
Yeah.
Looked at him and I said, "I am very young, but I'm not inexperienced. What I do is I ask the patient what they want my help with.
Yeah.
I listen to their story and I coach them as a team to get to where they want to be. I use my expertise and what the knowledge I have gained through my training
Hmm.
to make it easier for them and quickest." And he said, "That's all?" I said, "That's all. I don't advertise. I never ask any patient to come to me. Actually, my name is not even there. It's by word of mouth. They find out and they come. They like what they see. They keep coming."
Yeah. They must, because you stay very busy, right? And so I follow up on that. So in the world of endocrinology, a lot of that work is very deep work, right? There's a lot of lifestyle changes, especially with diabetics and different folks that need to be made. And you spend time with them. And how does that reflect in how does that transform them down the road in terms of them coming back to you? Or how, because oftentimes when we spend less time with patients and we kind of band-aid it and kind of move it along, they end up showing up more often, more frequently, right? To get these things done. Do you find that your patients aren't coming back as frequently because there's a little bit more deeper work happening?
So I'm going to answer it. The like what I've observed in my practices, because I've worked in many
Yeah.
different settings. When I used to be part of a health system, I ask them, or I refer them, let's say, to a nutritionist, right?
Sure. Right.
I ask them to get physically active. So these are all during the consultation. It happens, and I give them the prescription they need. Generally, when they went to the nutritionist, sometimes they couldn't get across, like they couldn't get connected with the
Yeah.
nutritionist. They basically don't make any lifestyle changes in their dietary habits. They come back 3 months later. They come back to see me. That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
They always showed up to see me, and they were embarrassed. They felt embarrassed. They felt they haven't, like, kind of, they have disappointed me by not doing what I
Right.
asked them to do.
Yeah.
So it came from the respect they developed for, like, the consultation I gave them, and really wanted to make the change. But the system wasn't built the proper way to actually empower them to make the changes.
Right.
So that's why actually I started private practice for myself. I it is swimming the opposite direction of the river. Majority of physicians now from the private practice go to the employed because it has less hassles. But after doing 12 years of this, and I see the pain in the patient, the changes is hard to happen unless you have a great team that
Right.
communicates constantly, working together to empower this individual to get a goal. It's not going to happen.
Right.
In a very busy practice, I know we have electronic health system. The nutritionist may send me a note. I may get to it a month later because I'm overwhelmed with what else is going on in front of me at the moment. But
Right.
now in my own practice, I have a group of health coaches
Yeah.
that I have actually hired them one by one, interviewing them.
You're
I
right.
know who they are who are working as a
Yeah.
person. So I match the person who is the patient with the coach that will work for them. And I tell them, if this
That's
doesn't
brilliant.
work for you, you come back, we'll find somebody else.
Right.
So it is much more fulfilling because you see them actually become successful in
Yeah.
making meaningful changes.
Right. You're empowering the patient to take ownership of their health
Yes.
while providing resources for them to do that. That's amazing. That
Yes.
is wonderful.
Ways of being that you've just described that I've heard are you're being a teammate and creating a agreement effectively with your patients about the shared mission.
Yeah.
Even starting from the beginning point, hey, what is it you would like me to help you with? And I'm committed to doing what's necessary to help you with that.
It's an amazing
And
question to start out with.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And you're being compassion in the way that you interact and relate with your patients. And you're being competence or mastery. You've already described that you're not inexperienced. You've created and developed your mastery. So these different ways of being seem like they're making an impact over there for your patients for whom you have had a year-long waiting list because people want to be with you.
Right. I want to acknowledge you for that. That's wonderful work that you're doing there.
Thank
And the outcomes, speak to the outcomes that you've had with patients through this kind of work.
Right. So that's one thing that I actually wanted to touch on that. So previously, when I was employed by a health system, you get this system of RVUs. I bet you guys are familiar with RVUs,
Yep.
which for the listeners, it's kind of a point system. So the idea is generally you get 60% of the salary you signed up for. Based on like after 2 or 3 years, you only get 60% of the salary. To get the other 40%, it's not a bonus or anything. You need to make certain number of those points. And if you actually make those points or RVUs, you get a whole full salary. And if you do extra points, which means you have shorter visits, see more number of patients in a specialty like medicine, or like that there is no procedures, because specialties that have procedures, the RVUs are higher. The points you get for one procedure may be 10, where for a consultation of medicine that takes more elaborate work, you could just get 0.5 point.
Right.
So that's how the system is created, basically. And that's how you get rewarded for your work in the current health system.
Right.
Though you never get rewarded by how many successful patients you have. Like I always went to the directors of the endocrine and I said, listen, we gotta put some points for how many diabetic patients I'm getting, and actually they make improvement in their A1C.
Right.
Because I could see like 500 diabetics, they started with an A1C of 10, now they are 10 and a half, being in my practice for a year. That's not success.
No
matter how many I've seen. But this is not something we get kind of, I guess, evaluated based on. But now what I do in my practice is I actually don't accept taking care of the patients who are not willing to be a teammate with me.
Right.
So the initial consultation I have with them, I explain to them that I'm here to get you result with my team.
Right.
I want to get result. What is the result you want? And I ask them three things, and I get them to commit to work with me at least 3 months.
Yeah.
I tell them like these things that you want is achievable, but it takes time and work.
Yeah.
And the first visit, I evaluate. I have many different questions I ask them. I evaluate if they're willing to put the work and effort. If they are not, I give them resources that I've recorded, my teachings, so they have access to that. But I tell them, I cannot help you because you're not ready to make the commitment. So anybody who comes to my practice and actually enrolls in that 3 months basic plan, they get the result we signed off the first day.
That's amazing.
Sometimes I may, like, depends on what the progress is. Something, life happens and this stuff. We need to make a longer time, but I haven't had anybody to not get to the first three things that they set up in the first meeting.
That's
So
amazing.
success rate is 100% actually in my current practice.
Wow.
Because we do the screening at the beginning.
Yeah. About that screening real quick. When we started this conversation, you talked about mind, spirit, and physics, or the physical body and so forth. Is your intake questions with that patients on that initial consult, does it reflect those three things?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it has two pages for mental health, 2 pages for spiritual health, and the current practices. Questions about, are they willing to explore it if they currently don't have one?
Yeah.
And currently I'm working with a friend who is finishing up a theology, psychology mixed PhD to develop a dedicated spiritual programs for my clinic.
Yeah.
So we're going to launch that in November. So we are creating different basically courses and different programs and packages with him. Because I'm not a spiritual leader. I'm a spiritual person myself, but he's the leader, and he has a team that can help my patients and me in my clinic.
Yeah. And follow up on that. When you're talking about spiritual, we're focusing more on purpose in life, what drives them, what moves them forward in that particular way, and their sense to an overall greater sense in the world or sense in the universe, that sort of spiritual take on it?
So that's one part of it, but we also specifically ask them, do they have any spiritual practice? And there is a list of, in the question, there's a list of it that includes, let's say, prayers, going to like mosque or church or a temple, how often they do that. What keeps them going? What helps them to wake up every morning? What do they want from life? So it's a kind of very detailed sets of questions. And when they ask a question, then the next question will pop up based on the answer they gave the previous time. So we have a framework of where they are now, or are they an atheist? They don't believe in a higher power. How come they got there? You know what I mean? And if we want to understand where they are coming from and meet them where they're at now, and then see how we can empower them further to get to the health outcome they want, if they are willing to explore spirituality, if they don't have anything currently. But most people have something. For some people, it could be reading. You know, it's a spiritual practice. Reading is a spiritual practice.
Yeah, absolutely. So meeting them where they're at, and then empowering them from that place to pursue better health in those three aspects: the mind, the spirit, and the body. That's wonderful. Brilliant work.
Well, I experience you, Nargess. You are transforming medicine.
Absolutely.
It's not a change. It's actually a completely different experience for your patients when you describe a 100% success rate And those patients with whom you create a team and you're committed to the same mission.
Yeah.
And maybe some patients aren't the patients that want to be with you, but are those patients where you work together as a team, you're just knocking it out of the park. And it's interesting when you go back to RVU. RVU stands for relative value unit. But value in the business world perspective is valued as something for which we can receive monetary reimbursement. It has nothing to do with true value in making a difference in the world or serving our patients. So it's perhaps a little bit misuse of the term. When Corey asked you about your success rates and things of that nature, and you alluded to it earlier, if you had 500 patients and you got 15 minutes per appointment per patient, maybe their A1Cs went from 10 to 10.5, but you'd still accumulate a lot of RVUs, meaning not true value, and you'd make your income. It's kind of, to me, it seems like it's the short-sighted approach to business. It's like right now, for my own particular business, as part of this big society, how can I get the maximum reimbursement versus from a societal perspective, how can we produce the greatest value in medicine for our entire society so that even though maybe you spend more time with the patient and maybe you connect them up with the coach and maybe you connect them up with the spiritual leader, an ultimate outcome that drives their A1C down into a useful zone where they're not having cardiomyopathy or eye problems or kidney problems or losing their toes, in the grand scheme of things, creates more value for our society than 15-minute appointments. So how do we create, and you're doing it, you're already doing it. You're already making the shift. You're already making a change. You're already being who you are and people are hearing who you are. How else can we go about having the leaders of our society see that there's more value in the long run of doing what Nargess is doing than what the business of medicine is doing?
I think one way to do that is to get more physicians involved.
Yes.
In planning how a health system is run. Because let's say, let's come out of the medicine for a second. Let's go, like we are all parents here, or if even not parents, we have had parents, right? If you want to get your kid successful, you can't just prescribe rules and say, hey, you got to do this. The kid is not going to do it unless they actually know that you care about them. They trust you that this is not for your well-being or you being proud. It's for them. The idea is them being successful. If you have their trust and then they believe in what you're saying, you gotta be creative to actually make it work for that kid. For example, today, my daughter has some back issues, right? She's been getting physical therapy. I registered her for the gym. The first week she went like 3 times. Then she went 1 time. Then she didn't show up for 2 weeks. So I sat down and said, okay, how I can get this kid? She's 15-year-old. I can't force her and say, grab her and pull her to the gym, right? So I sat down with her and I said, she wants to go to medicine, interestingly. I said, honey, if you want to go to medicine, if you want to be healthy in your 40s, then you need to put the effort now. It makes no sense to her now. She's 15. She can't resonate with that, right?
Right.
So, okay, I said, I got to be more creative. So what I did with her, I said, okay, she wants to go. We have this Memorial Day weekend fair going on. She has gone 2 days with her friend. Today is the 3rd day, and today is the blast. All the bands from high school is performing. This is the day she wants to be there. So I said, honey, I just want to tell you something. You want to go to this fair, right? And I've been taking you like the past 3 days with your friends. She said, yes. So do you need a ride? She said, yes, I need a ride. I said, okay, honey. Then I don't charge you for the ride, but what I like is I like a healthy kid. So you put the effort for 1 hour in the gym. You come up with the time you want to go. I will give you a ride back and forth to the gym. Then I take your friends with you to go to the gym, to the fair.
Yeah.
That worked for her. Initially, she said, "Oh, Mom, you want to force me?" I said, "No, honey. I need to set up time to take you there, right? I prioritize your needs. And one of the needs you have is being healthy and being physically active. So I'm just assisting you to get it done." So she did the gym. It's, you gotta find a way that works for people. But I can't have my dad to tell me how to parent, or my mom to tell me how to parent my kid. I know this kid. I am her parent. I know her in and out. So I got to work with this kid. If my parents make a prescription for how to get her to the gym, it's not going to work.
Right.
So the same idea goes for medicine. If the admins who are based on business, they have a business mind, which is very valuable. We all need to put, at the end of the day, we want to put food on our tables. We need to make money. Nobody's against money. I love money. Money opens doors. But we got to do it in a way that we don't hurt patient care and we don't make our physicians suicidal on the way. So if we are the most prosperous, or money-making healthcare system, but our physicians are quitting or running away or killing themselves, and the patients are very unhappy with the services we provide, that's not success.
No.
So we need to get more physicians as leaders to create basically the rules and regulations for this health system to work.
Yeah.
And it's on physicians as well. I should say that we are not, we think we just need to do the clinical work. That's what we are trained for. That's what we learn.
Yeah.
But in order for the system to run, we need to step up as leaders, like just what you and Jeff are doing here. You're actually speaking up about what needs to be done. That's the first step.
That's the first step.
Yes.
And share the vision and enroll people in it. Right. Yes. And then create collaborative environments where we do have administrators and we have physicians and clinicians engaged at every level. And viewing patients, I love how your practice views patients in the three domains of the mind, the spirit, and the body, and helping them, really truly healing them in all three areas to help them improve and get healthier. That's amazing.
Yes.
Love that.
Yeah.
I can ask you a personal question. First of all, experience was really brilliant, and I love the body, mind, and spirit. How is there any correlation to your heritage, your Persian heritage, and what you've brought into your medical practice that would be interesting to the listener who, like myself, doesn't have a lot of context around that?
Great question.
Repeat the question one more time, Jeff. I didn't get it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to repeat this question, and I'll try to reframe it. I don't know a lot about Persian heritage, and I'm curious about how you grew up and your Persian heritage, how that has shown up in medicine, and in which ways maybe it is influential in where you've gotten to where you've gotten as far as creating what you've created with your patients.
A wonderful question. Yes. So here is the deal. I have lived 24 years in Iran. That's where I'm born and raised and did my medical school. And I've lived now 22 years in the United States. So it's kind of almost equal time in my lifetime between the two countries. And they're the two opposite. Sure. Iran is a very ancient, traditional, family-based culture. United States is a very advanced, I would say, technology-based, relatively new country. It's not even 300 years old, the current United States that we're experiencing, right? I'm not talking about the lands. It's about the current US. So shifting from there with what I experienced and coming as a young physician here, I was hungry to learn medicine from the experts that write the textbooks. So that's the reason I actually moved here to learn from the experts, right? But when I came here, I ended up as during my first year of residency, I ended up in Brooklyn in a hospital that was run by somebody who was a Holocaust survivor.
Wow.
So his family moved to United States after Holocaust. This individual hired majority Muslim and international physicians as residents meticulously.
Wow.
And basically abused them through the training many different ways. I had a 1-year contract there. So in 2 months before my contract was up, he said he's not going to renew my contract. And I was number 3 in my med school. I had I was top in my group of interns. He said he's not going to renew my contract. No reason behind it. It's okay. I went for 4 interviews for PGY2 position. I got 4 positions. So I was just to choose where to go. So I came back to him and I said, thank you for the time that, you led me to be in this program. Would you write me a letter? I'm transitioning. And he said, no, we want you. Now he says, no, we want you. We made a mistake. We want you to stay. And I contacted some of my other attendings and I said, how I'm going to address this? I needed the letter to leave. And they said, you need to kind of tell him you already made a verbal commitment based on the previous, basically, discussion you had with her, and you can't break your verbal commitment. So he ended up giving me a good, recommendation letter. I moved on. The second program I went was a beautiful, beautiful program. It was in, they call it the West Village in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And that's like the location majority of Americans want to be there. So I got to actually work with top-notch American physicians in that program.
Yeah.
And really experienced through compassionate medicine. And I learned a bunch. That hospital was the first hospital who had a transgender hormonal clinic in the nation. And for me, coming from Iran, transgender actually is acceptable in Iran based on the current law. Like, the rulers make the law. But if you are gay, you will get killed in Iran. It is based on the current law. You cannot be gay. You're not allowed to be gay or you lose your life. So when I came to this actually neighborhood for the first time, I got exposed to I didn't know what the word gay is. I didn't know what homosexuality is. And I gradually learned it. I got to work with people who are homosexual and they're wonderful. So I learned, many of my attendings were homosexuals. I learned from the experts who have lived it and wanted to kind of, so when I actually finished fellowship, I came to State College, a center of Pennsylvania. Every corner is a church. My director said, oh, you don't need to work with like transgenders. I said, I love to work with transgenders. I know how to do it. And I was the only physician who does it. So people would basically drive 2-3 hours to my clinic. And I learned the stories. I learned the stories and helped people just because of the training I got.
Yeah.
So but to summarize, I'm speaking too much now, probably. It's two opposite of culture and societal values, but at the end of the day, we work with human beings, and human beings are alike.
Yeah.
So I basically fuse what I learned from Iran. And in Iran, this family oriented, meaning at the end of the day, no matter how hard you work, there is a family to embrace you over good meal and laughter.
Yeah.
No matter how hard is the work, you get good company, your spirit goes up, you're ready to go to the fight the next day.
Yeah.
So it's not like here after long shift, like 40 hours of work, you go in a lonely place and you may get like, I don't know, a hot dog or some cereal, go to bed, start the next day.
Yeah.
So I am trying to actually kind of, by living it, be a role model, say it is possible. You could have a good family life to nourish you to be able to do the hard work day after day after day with your full being.
Wow. That's a wonderful, wonderful story, Nargis. Thank you for sharing that. And it is interesting. I could hear when what I was hearing when you were telling the story about your coming to the United States was just how it sparked a lot of curiosity in you to learn and to become and experience compassion for folks. That's amazing. So thank you for being compassionate and also being curious, because if we're not being curious about things, then we start to close ourselves off, and look what it created for you in your life. And so thank you for showing up that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Seems like some things that you've mentioned is the difficulty for a physician to be living out of alignment versus, it sounds to me from what you've created for yourself, is that your current practice is much more in alignment with your core principles.
Yeah.
And the ability to show up as a leader and make a difference, be responsible, and the ability to create self-nourishment through spirituality and home life. Are these things consistent with how you would guide a physician to avoid burnout, to avoid risk of suicide? And what else would you add to that?
Absolutely. Actually, I myself, back in 2018, I was burned out. So
Yeah.
I reached out to my program director. I'm going to tell his name. He's an absolutely beautiful human being, Stuart Winnerman. He is a head of endocrinology in Northwell health system. I reached out and I said, Dr. Winnerman, I don't want to go to work anymore. And he said, tell me about it. So I explained to him, like, this is what's going on. I'm working 14 hours a day. I don't get to see my daughter. I have no fun. Life has no meaning for me anymore. I actually drag myself out of bed in the morning, force myself to go.
Yeah.
And he said, Nargis, you're burned out. That
Yeah.
was the first time I heard the word burnout. And at that point, it was a hot topic. They were working with fellows and residents. So he gave me a lot of resources. And with talking to him, I actually decided to bring some joy to this life. The first thing I did, I quit my first job. Then when I had 1 year of like, but after talking to him, I just realized this is not doable for me. This is not what I want in life. So I quit and I started a nonprofit for physician suicide prevention.
Yeah.
And I learned based on my own personal experience and talking to many other physicians, I actually learned what brings us to the point that we need to drag ourselves to go to work. And came up with some ideas, some programs, something that could bring the joy back.
Yeah.
And it all comes, but we all need to have something that's joyful, meaningful. It could be a family, it could be your pets, it could be a big dream, it could be a nonprofit work you want to do, it could be an adventure. We need to have something to look forward to and build.
Yes.
We can't just keep giving and giving. We need to fill the cup, our cup, so we can give from the overflow. If we keep giving from our cup, what's inside, we're gonna burn out.
Right.
And I learned it close to age 40 years old, Jeff, to be exact. And then started learning what makes my life joyful, so I can show up fully for my patients.
Absolutely. That's absolutely brilliant. And that spills over with ripple effects throughout all of healthcare, right? Throughout our lives. But in the domain of medicine, physicians showing up with their cup full, and that spills over with the nurses and the team and the patients. And it's just, got to find that purpose and that mission that drives us forward. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Nargess, I've learned so much from you.
Absolutely.
And I really want to acknowledge you for who you're being for your patients,
mm-hmm.
who you're being for other physicians, who you're being as a leader in the transformation of bringing being into medicine, who you're being for your family, and who you're being for yourself. Because that keeping yourself whole and complete really is a wonderful role model. And I hereby nominate you to the position of Chief Happiness Officer in Being in Medicine.
I love that.
I love that title. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for joining, Nargess. It was just a wonderful conversation. You are absolutely brilliant, and look forward to hearing more about how you're taking care of your patients and serving the world. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for joining us today on the Being in Medicine show, where each week we open the transformative power of connecting our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual nature to how we show up in medicine.
If you find this conversation valuable, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you or someone you know has a story to share, contact us at beinginmedicine.com. See you next time.